Chapter 10, 1988 to 1991. I was comfortable in Chicago waiting for Andy to find us a place to live and loved having my kids spend time with my parents, grandmothers, and siblings. Andy called me from a payphone in Hawaii. "How do you feel about staying with the kids at the Manago Hotel for a couple weeks? It's not that great, but it's affordable and we'd be together." Andy picked us up at the airport in Kona, and we settled into life living out of a hotel. Our second-floor room had a balcony that overlooked a lush tropical garden. Each morning, I'd do my yoga on the balcony as Alana lay in her baby blanket, and Brendan played games. "Aloha," he'd call to the Hawaiian gardener tending the plants below. Eventually, a house in Puako opened up, and we moved in just as our belongings from Taos arrived by freight ship in Hilo. Our living room was dominated by toys we'd shipped over for Brendan. All our stuff was placed on the edge of the carpet surrounding a big open area. We figured the open area was perfect for playing, dancing, yoga, or just stretching out on the floor. We bought a yellow parakeet, and Brendan named her Sunspark. She had a cage, but we often let her fly around the big living room. I have a vivid memory of baby Alana in her high chair, eating banana with Sunspark sitting happily on her head. We spent time at the beach every single day. Andy wanted us to go even when he was away selling our jewelry at art shows on the mainland. He wanted his kids to grow up spending lots of time at the beach. There was always something new at the beach, but we also had a routine. We'd set ourselves up toward the middle of the long stretch of crescent-shaped yellow sand. There was one big lava rock that became Brendan's imaginary ship. He would swim out past the close break and snorkel with his mask on, face down, for a long time. During Alana's nap, she'd sleep in her shaded chair next to Andy while Brendan played, and I'd go for a swim by myself. I loved looking at my content family on the beach while I was far out in the ocean. Once, when I returned to shore, Brendan grabbed my hand and pulled me over to a shady spot sheltered by rocks. I saw a sun-baked man in tiny trunks and a large hat weaving palm fronds. He was making hats and taught Brendan how to make them too. My son's newfound talent secured our status as beach people. In the course of the next couple years, Brendan would learn to swim strongly, catch waves, weave hats, fly stunt kites, and he befriended all the other beach folk. Alana learned to crawl and then to walk on the beach and became completely at home in the water. One slow morning, it wasn't yet time to go to the beach, and I needed to make some jewelry. Brendan complained that he was bored. At that time, I felt that it was my responsibility to find something that interested him. I was fretting about not knowing how to relieve his boredom, and I felt pressure to make jewelry while Alana napped. The phone rang. It was my dad. "Today has been a little hard because Brendan is bored and I have work to do that I need to get done," I told him. "Honey, I don't think being bored is necessarily a bad thing," he said. "I've been listening to my WMBI radio show, and there was an interview with an author who wrote a book called Homegrown Kids. It seems to me you are homeschooling Brendan, and this book says that when a child is bored, that's often the motivation that pushes them to dig a little deeper and get their own creative juices flowing and become more self-reliant. Do you have things for him to play with, like art supplies and books?" "We sure do," I replied. "Michelle, try confidently pointing out to Brendan that he is fully capable of finding something to relieve his own boredom. Carry on with what you need to do and don't give it another thought. Just watch what happens." 5-year-old Brendan looked up at me with his intelligent blue eyes. I took a breath and spoke with more confidence than I felt. "Brendan, that was Granddad. He reminded me that you are smart and creative and are fully able to find something interesting and fun to do while I get my work done. You don't have to be bored. So I'm going to make bracelets now, and I know you will find something wonderful to do until Alana wakes up, and then we'll go to the beach." I started working at my bench and listened carefully for sounds of what he was up to, and I was amazed to hear him playing and making up a game. It worked. My dad sent me 3 informative paperback books by Raymond and Dorothy Moore. All were practical handbooks about teaching children at home instead of sending them to school. I was fascinated, especially since Brendan was expressing strong opinions about wanting to be home instead of catching the bus to school with the neighbor children. It was the first step in my own education about the opportunities and freedom available to families who opened their minds to unconventional ways of schooling their children. We were settling into Brendan and Alana staying at home with me while Andy flew back and forth to the mainland for art shows. I missed him, but felt grateful he was willing to take over that part of earning our living while our kids were very young. I loved staying put. One day, our neighbors told us about a Waldorf kindergarten opening. Their son, Devin, had become one of Brendan's close friends, and their baby daughter, Lila, was Alana's age. Maybe we could carpool if both boys went, Natalie, their mom suggested. I don't know, I replied. Brendan doesn't want to go to school yet, and we aren't going to push him. I can try it if Devin is going, Brendan piped up. He had never liked preschool in Taos, and I wondered how this would go. I thought about the inspiring information my dad had sent us. I had only just become at ease with the idea of Brendan staying at home instead of going to school. Then I remembered that the point was to be open-minded and allow children to find their own pathways. My learning curve on this subject did not have to be Brendan's limiting factor. Okay, I told Natalie, we'll join you for the information meeting, but I can't imagine just the two of us driving every other day the 35 miles to Kealakekua. One step at a time, Natalie wisely advised. Andy was home that week, and we all bundled into our Honda Accord and drove for an hour to the location of Pali Uli School, the Rudolf Steiner-inspired Waldorf school getting ready to open. Rosie Scharfenberg, the teacher, spoke to the group of parents and prospective students, all 5 and 6 years old, in a schoolhouse like I'd never been in before. Everything was orderly, inviting, and colorful. Rosie shared some of the ways that Waldorf schools were different from other preschools. We emphasize activities and play that allow the imagination to grow and form. We also use spiritual traditions from Christian and ancient Hawaiian practices to mark holidays and celebrations throughout the year. We were told that it would be best to eliminate television from our children's lives and to replace it with activities like gardening, caring for a pet, or playing make-believe. We know that giving time for the imagination to fully form allows a child to become the leader of their own life, and the knowledge of numbers and reading comes more easily a bit later. We believe our world needs more leaders and less followers, and that can happen when children are given time to have their imaginations grow without restriction, Rosie went on to say. I really want to go to that school, Brendan said on the drive home. We'll see if it can work out. It's very expensive and also a pretty far drive from home, Andy told him. It worked out. Andy painted the entire outside of the schoolhouse as a trade for Brendan's tuition. We carpooled with Natalie and 2 different neighbors to each drive the boys 1 day a week. Later that year, Ellen came to visit. We had met the year before while we were living at the Manago Hotel. On her last morning with us, I was making pancakes, and Alana was in her high chair, giving herself a banana shampoo. Brennan was chasing Sunspark, who was flying around the room and trying to get her in the cage because we were leaving shortly for school. Ellen came in from watching the sunrise with an expression of rapture on her face and said, "Oh, Michelle, the colors this morning were so deep and moving, and you missed it all." "Oh, Helen," I replied, "it's okay. I missed that, and you missed all this." I gestured to the chaotic but unmistakable joy that radiated from my messy family. Our years living on the Big Island seemed especially blissful, but we eventually decided to return to the mainland so we could live together instead of Andy doing the art shows by himself. We had purchased some undeveloped land near Taos, and our house truck was awaiting us there. We packed up our stuff and had a yard sale, turning many of our belongings into cash. We bought one-way plane tickets and sold our 2 cars. We flew to Honolulu and had a long layover at the airport. Our gate was jammed full of people talking loudly and surrounding a lone Hawaiian Airlines agent who was trying to make order. Andy got in line, and when his turn came, he frantically waved me over. "If we're willing to give up our seats on this flight, this man will give us free round-trip tickets back here that we can use within 2 years. It seemed we weren't really leaving after all.